Welcome to the podcast. Today I want to talk about this concept of edging. I got a lot of questions about edging. What is it? Should I do it? Does it help with sex? Does it help you last longer? How is it different than semen retention? All of the above. So the concept of edging, we actually have to back up a little bit, right? We have to actually explain why you would want to do this, right? So there are philosophies, in Tantra, which is an ancient Indian system of belief, and in Taoism, which is from a Chinese ancient system of belief, that the energy that is cultivated from your semen through your ejaculate is incredibly powerful and it is life-giving. Usually, back in the day, people had sex to procreate. They didn't really have a lot of sex for fun. Maybe they did as times got older, but at the very beginning of time, people procreated to have children. Nowadays, we procreate mostly for fun and less, to have children. I don't know what the statistics are, but it's much more skewed towards fun, enjoyment, and pleasure, which, by the way, is great. But that being said, the seed, your seed as a man, that is incredibly potent life force energy, right? So you have to remember, that seed can create life. It's 1/2 of what's needed to create life. You have millions and millions of little sperm running around every time you ejaculate. So this concept of how do I protect and preserve my seed? How do I hold the energy, right? And not dissipate it, meaning release it regularly, frivolously, all the time, right? That we do nowadays. That's an important question and concept to really understand and consider. If sperm and semen can create life, and if there is energy that is created along with the fluids that are being developed and released when you are in an intimate act, what does it say about the energy? Right? There's the energetic piece, there's a physiological piece. There's a really great analogy. So when guys get blue balls, right, it's because they're being stimulated in some way and then they don't end up releasing. The blue balls is really in my understanding and my experience, blue balls is about there's energy that's being cultivated there that isn't moving, it's stagnant, it doesn't get lifted through the system, through the body. It just stays down there and it feels heavy and it can hurt. Physiologically, there may be fluids moving that come up the vas deferens into the urethra, all that sort of stuff, and that may cause some pain as well. But in my experience, it's mostly this feeling of dense energy. When I talk about edging, the reason why someone would want to edge is that they want to actually preserve more of this energy than release it, which means that you have to be able to be sexually active without needing to release. And you actually need to learn how to do it because there's a process. If you believe that semen is life force energy, and if you believe that that energy is potent, and if you believe that it may be beneficial to you to not release every time you want to, because A, you get tired, you get a rush of prolactin in your body, your dopamine peaks and then crashes uncontrollably. You're not in a state of aliveness after you ejaculate. Prolactin is a satiating hormone. When a man releases, prolactin floods his body. Prolactin, if you guys don't know, is the hormone a lot of women produce when they're lactating, prolactin. And when you lactate, the baby sucks on his mother's nipple, drinks the breast milk, and then goes to sleep. Prolactin is the feel-good, satiated, relaxing hormone. It's also released in men after they ejaculate. And there's a lot of theories about why this happens biologically and whatnot, but essentially after you ejaculate, you turn into a sleepy puppy. That's what I call it, right? You get disconnected. You kind of want to do your own thing. You're very lethargic. You don't have that will, that drive, that energy. There's all these things at play, So you have to basically say okay, I kind of buy this, right? Well, I know how I feel after I come. I don't feel awesome. I don't feel super connected. If you're younger, you bounce back more quickly. If you're old, it takes longer. The reason why is because young men have more dopamine in their bodies and older men have less dopamine in their bodies. So if you release and prolactin gets injected into your hormone system, but you have a lot of dopamine, the dopamine will overcome it quickly. Older men have less dopamine. So it means the refractory period is longer, which means that they can't go as often. So as an old guy, why would you want to edge? Well, if you're going to go, you're not going to be good for maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe even the whole day as you get older, right? So there's a lot of reasons why young guys, why middle-aged guys, and why old guys should be inquiring into this, right? It's not just so I can last 3 hours during sex. That's not really it. It's about preservation of life force energy. And that's a really powerful thing. When you're a young guy, you don't think about it as much because you got a shitload of it. But as you start to age, you start to recognize, oh wow. It's just like drinking. When you're younger, you don't get as bad of a hangover usually. And then when you get older, your hangovers get worse and worse and worse with the less and lesser amounts of alcohol. Why does that happen? Some physiological shifts and changes in your body. Maybe it has to do with dopamine too. I don't know. But the point point is, it affects you more when you get older. Muscles take longer to grow, ligaments take longer to repair, bones take longer to get back into full, capacity. So like everything sort of takes longer. So when you're a young guy, you don't think about this. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be mindful of preserving that life force energy. When you're an older guy, you have to be extra mindful, and you should be doing everything in your power to enjoy sexual intimacy, to please your partner, but to not release. So that's this concept of edging, right? So edging also is important for a couple things. Like it can help last longer. It can help with performance anxiety. It can help with, prostate health. There are a lot of things that edging can do. And in doing so, you're actually going to activate a lot of the markers that are much beneficial for your sexual health and longevity. And then there's obviously like the difference between edging and semen retention. So I want to unpack that. Edging, to me, is a practice of when you are sexually active, whether it's by yourself or with a partner, you are doing an active, mindful practice of not ejaculating. So you are engaging, you're building up, you're getting intense, you have a hard on, whether it's oral sex or regular sex or whatever it is, or personal pleasure. You are building yourself up to a point, and you are actively choosing to stop at that point. I call that the magic 8. It's an 8 out of a 10. It's like if a 10 is a full bust and a 0 is a flaccid penis, you're at about an 8 out of a 10. Now with men, we know there's this thing called ejaculatory inevitability. You know that feeling when you've crossed the threshold, you've crossed the point of no return, where it's like, it's so good, it's so intense, you can't stop, so you just gotta let it go. And by the way, it's totally fine. You should do that because it feels great. Nowhere do I ever say like, oh my God, like you have to do this. Like it's not how it works. If you're in an amazing situation and it calls for it, go for it. However, if you are actively masturbating to porn 3 or 4 times a day and releasing, then we got to talk, because that's a whole different ball of wax. And you should be much more mindful about your seed and spreading it and like what you're watching while you're doing it and all that. So edging is a practice when you are sexually active. You are either manipulating and exercising with yourself. You're either doing the growth exercises. You are doing self-pleasuring exercises. You are with a partner. Then you're doing oral sex and regular sex. That's edging. Semen retention is like a protocol of really like non-sexual activity. It's like sexual abstinence. In my mind, it's for guys who are hardcore addicted to porn and need a 3-month reset, 90 days, no porn, no sexual activity, no masturbation, no caffeine, no nothing. Literally, it's like hardcore, and that's a topic for another conversation. But semen retention and edging are not exactly the same thing. Technically, you are holding your seed in more often, but that doesn't mean that you can't release. Because one of the really cool things about edging is like when you practice with a partner or with yourself, 3 or 4 reps, 3 or 4 rounds of edging, and then you finally do release in that same session, the orgasm is insane. It's so powerful, and it goes longer and it lasts longer and you feel it more. It's really intense. So, that's another positive with it. Well, it's like, wow, why would I do this? Well, can you delay the gratification of the first bust and slowly pull back and then build up again and pull back and build up again and pull back? I mean, that's really what it's about, because it helps your sessions last longer. When you get to that point and you stop, you relax, and you do a certain set of breathing techniques and exercises with your mouth and your tongue, then like focus on her pleasure. You can go down on her. You could play with her with your fingers, whatever you want to do. You can massage. So it extends the sessions, which is a nice byproduct because it gives more time and potential for her orgasm. Again, man, like we're not just focused on our orgasm. That's not what we're doing here. We need to focus on our pleasure, which is like very easy to do because we're just ready. But we also want to focus on her pleasure. So another reason why someone would want to edge is that they want to give themselves more time so that she can then receive more pleasure. Because as I've discussed, women need like 25 to 45 minutes of foreplay to get to the point where they can be fully aroused. Now that may shift and change based off of what cycle they're in or what part of their moon they're in, right? Like follicular, luteal, ovulatory, or menstrual. Ovulatory, obviously, it may be shorter than 25 or 45 minutes. But the more foreplay is usually going to enhance your experience, regardless of what stage of her cycle that she's in. Edging has multiple benefits. And so if you as a man are in a position where you're like, okay, I want to get better at sex. I want to last longer. I want to give her more orgasms. I want to feel more power, feel more vigor, feel more drive, avoid laziness and fatigue and malaise, have more energy that I can put into my body, my career, my hobbies, my passions, my dating life, whatever you want to put it into. All of that is a byproduct of an edging practice. So for those reasons, and I'm sure there's more, like edging is incredibly valuable. It's what a lot of very famous people have done, right? As they've, boxers, exercise this practice, either of edging or semen retention. A lot of famous, executives and CEOs develop a practice of either edging or semen retention. Because what happens is if I'm turned on, I'm horny, I want to self-pleasure, and I'm going out later that night, or I'm going to go be with friends, later that day, or whatever it is, and there's women around. If I engage in an edging practice, right, which is personal self-pleasure, a number of rounds of up and stop and down, and up and stop and down, and up and stop and down, to the point where I don't release, I've cultivated a lot of sexual energy in my body. So where does that energy go? Right? Well, I know how to do it, so it doesn't stay down there. But that energy is then pulled up to the higher levels, right? To the higher centers. And I gotta tell you, when I walk into a room, women and men can feel that energy. It's oozing out of you. It's something that's so potent. They don't know what it is, but it's potent, right? Because I've cultivated a lot of powerful energy that can make a child, right? We've said it's powerful, it's potent. So if you hold that, okay, this is potent, powerful energy, and you cultivate it, and you cycle it, and you lift it up to the higher levels, when I walk into a room, I feel like I'm on a fucking cloud 9, and people can feel that. Women can feel that energy from you. So that's another reason why I recommend doing this practice, is because you cultivate a powerful energy, an energy that can't really be cultivated in any other way. Yeah, you can go to the gym. I go to the gym all the time. You get that pump at the gym. This energy is slightly different. It's a different type of energy. It's potent. And then if I release, I feel the effects of that release, right? I'm not as jazzed, turned on, sparked up. I don't get that same energetic mirror, right? Because my frequency is not the same. I cultivated it and then I let it go and it's out in a paper towel or tissue paper. So I think that's really important for men to understand, is that when you're doing this, you're doing everything for a reason. You have to put something as the highest pedestal, right? What do you want in your life? Do you want to be a powerful man who is an attractive character? Do you want to last longer in bed? Do you want to give her more time for orgasm? All these different reasons, right? Do I want to do this? And if any of those things that I've touched on are relevant or important for you, then you should absolutely engage in the practice of edging. How do you do it, right? How do you get started? So someone who's never even heard of it before, well, when you self-pleasure, you usually masturbate with oil into whatever you're watching, hopefully not porn, but it's likely porn. Go have a course for that. And you come, and then you're done, right? And so when you do edging, it's different. The intention is, hey, I'm going to go into this session, and I'm going to do 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe more. See how you feel. But start out doing 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe uncomfortable at first. It may be weird. You may not understand it. You may go soft. All of it's okay. None of it matters. The point is, you're actively not going to release. The most difficult part of edging is actually you have to find the magic 8. And every man is different, right? What I know are constants are you have a point where you need to release. It's called ejaculatory inevitability. Something happens inside the body and it's like, no. Got a rocket blast, right? And then you should do it because it's unhealthy not to. You need to find the point before that. So let's just say that's an 8. If you go to an 8.2 or an 8.3 out of a 10, you gotta go. You gotta release and you'll work on it next time. But if you can feel that 8 and you can hover just below it, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, and cultivate that energy, move that energy up the system, that's where you want to be. That is the perfect spot. Now it takes a little bit to get there. So I always recommend men start personal self-pleasure. It's the easiest way to do it. Don't try to do this when you're with a girl because it's going to go haywire. And it's going to potentially be an awkward scenario. But start out on your own. Pleasure yourself. Get to that 8 out of a 10. Get to that 7.6, 7.7. Feel where you're at. Actively stop touching yourself, right? And there's a series of breathing techniques, tongue techniques, eye movements, things like that you're going to do to get yourself into a different frame of reference. And then you're going to relax. You may go soft. You may go down, from really hard, you may go down to like a 3/4 or a half, 50% erection. That's okay. You're getting the hang of it. The ultimate goal is get to that 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, do the exercise and the activities that I share. And then when you get there, you still maintain your heart on. It may not be pulsing or throbbing as hard, but it's still hard. And then you can get back into it slowly and then edge and build up again, right? So how long do you do this for? The number of rounds is really up to you. Start out by doing 2 and see how it goes. You can do 5 or 6 or 7 if you want. It just takes a lot of time. But the point is, can I practice this knowing that I'm not going to release when it is that I want to? I'm going to release after a number of times of doing this. Because as I said, as a man, the most difficult thing in the world for us to do is to be on the brink of release and actively not do so. Doing so while you're with yourself is easy. Doing it when you're with a partner, that's really hard because you're in the heat of the moment. You're getting an incredible blowjob. And then, you're going to just stop? So always start with yourself. Practice on yourself. It's the best place to do it. One of the things that's really powerful about edging is that it allows you to last longer and increase your stamina, right? So if you go to the gym, right, and you're doing exercises and you get comfortable at a certain weight, 3 sets, 10 reps, and then you get comfortable with that weight and you can increase that weight, or you can go longer with that weight. You increase your stamina, you increase your cardio and your capacity. The same sort of thing happens with your timing, right? And your capacity to go longer. So, you might do 2 sessions and they might each last, a couple minutes. But then what if you get to the point where you're edging and you can edge for like 5 to 8 minutes and then you stop and then you pull back and then you start another 5 to 8 minute session and you stop and pull back and you go another 5 to 8 minutes. Well, that's 15 to, 24 minutes. Now that can translate into your bedroom time if you know how to do it properly. And it takes time to get there. You're not going to get it right away. But the point is, you are actively training your muscles and your body and your hormones and your systems to recognize this experience. It's like muscle memory. You get down, you jack off for 30 seconds. Well, guess what? And you do that all the time. Your body's going to get used to coming in 30 seconds. Well, we don't want that. We want to extend the session, right, as long as possible. So that's another benefit of edging. So, can edging help with premature ejaculation? Absolutely. Can it help with performance anxiety? Absolutely. It's a very powerful practice, right? We talked about how do you train your muscles? How do you train your body down there with muscle memory and habituation to engage in a scenario that you actually will be able to take into a partner practice, right? If you're doing 30-second releases to porn 4 times a day, your body is used to that. And your body is going to say, okay, well, this is what we do in this situation. We get an intense flood of dopamine and we want to release and then we're done. Well, that's not going to help you that much. So it's like extending those sessions, really enjoying the time that you have down there. Start with yourself. Use a lubricant that's oil-based. Don't use one that's water-based because you're going to have to reapply all the time. Products on my site you can grab. It's called Liquid Gold. But yes, it's an incredible practice for premature ejaculation. And then the performance anxiety piece is interesting because it's all about confidence. If you have confidence, you're not going to have a lot of performance anxiety. And training your body in a way that allows you to have extended personal sessions is going to infuse yourself with confidence so that when you are with a partner, you're going to be able to say, hey, I did, 4 sessions of 6 minutes and I cycled back. So I can do that with a partner. And there is a difference between doing it with yourself and doing it with a partner. It doesn't always translate the same. So if you're like, I did 6 sessions, I lasted 5 minutes, you can. It's just a little bit harder because the amount of intensity is heightened and there's another person there and there's more pleasure and they're using their mouth or their vagina or whatever. And it just gets a little bit more intense. So you have to work extra hard when you're with someone, but it's totally possible. I think edging should be done regularly, right? If you have a masturbation practice where you're masturbating 5 times a week, you should be edging at least 50% of those times and not releasing. Again, it depends on your age, your level of health. I have a worksheet that I give to guys that shows how many times they should be, actively masturbating to release. And, if you're a young guy and you're doing it 2 or 3 times a day, you need to edge 50% of those times. I think it's going to be really helpful for you. And you may feel like you have tons of energy, but again, if you're a young guy and you control and you cultivate that sexual energy, you're going to be unstoppable. It's another level. Most guys only learn about this stuff when they're older, and by that time, they don't have the dopamine, the energy levels that young guys do. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen sort of psychologically and mentally when you edge. Number 1, you get confidence, right? Number 2, it's a disciplined practice. You get focus. Number 3, you start to train your body physiologically to expect longer bouts and longer sessions. All of that infuses your confidence. Confidence is the key to being a better lover because you have a level of skill, you have a level of discipline, you have a level of awareness, where your magic 8 is. So that's the whole point.